I'm privileged to be able to, to speak on it. I mean, the things that transpired in my life happened for a reason. I do believe that, and some good is meant to come of it. I don't know exactly how that's going to, transpire, but if this is part of it, I'm happy to do it. I mean, my fall from grace was so fast and so furious. I mean, I'm still shell shocked. I still wake up thinking, did that really just happen to me? It was, one bad decision, just snowballed, and being in Chicago and the state of Illinois, and unfortunately with gun charges. And so with gun charges, I mean, it doesn't matter, they're coming after you, and rightfully so. Living in Chicago, one of the murder capitals of the world, it should be that way. But I got caught up in it real quick and found out that they're gonna lock you up no matter what here in Chicago. Their whole goal is to get you behind bars. I truly believe that, and it's just so they could start taxing you and getting money off you.
So tell us about what happened. Or start with
through some hard times, and in anybody's life, some things transpired in my marriage that kind of set me off. And once I added drugs and alcohol into the mix, it was all downhill from there. I'm 50 years old. I was incarcerated for 2 years. And prior to that, it was go to work, go home, dad. Just no going to the bars, no going to the gym even. I would just go home and, be a dad. And I love it. I love being a father. And, like I said, once I seen my marriage starting to crumble, and one of the worst ways possible, I just let my emotions, drive the train. I wasn't thinking clearly at all. I was, thinking with my heart, not my head, and just let my emotions, take over. My feelings and my circumstances took over. And like I said, once I started adding, my drug of choice was the opiates, were the painkillers. Once I add those into the mix, it was just, a slippery slope. And then it escalated. I finally moved out of my house, and that was really hard for me because, like I said, I loved being at home, gardening, taking care of the kids, softball game, volleyball game, whatever. And now, I'm disconnected from all that. And so then I even turned, more towards, the drugs and, just an angry life. And there was an opportunity, presented itself for me to make a quick buck, which was, I had some transaction with some stolen guns. And I would have been thinking clearly at the time, I would have never done it, obviously, I mean, not even thinking, there was a thought never crossed my mind, like, I could get in trouble for this. It was like kind of like an inside deal. It was, between some family members, and I just kind of exchanged some guns and made some money off of it. Never once did it think, it crossed my mind, I could get arrested, I could get, a series of felonies slapped on me, I could lose everything and go to jail. That never crossed my mind. And it should have.
So talk about the day that you got arrested. What happened that day?
Just an average day. I got my truck to go to work. A cop pulled me over, and I thought they were just pulling me over for a traffic violation for, a stop sign or something I missed. And I was like, whatever, this is just going to detain me. I'll get out of the ticket. I held a CDL with all the endorsements. They usually let guys like me go.
CDL, and tell us what that is. What's a CDL?
Commercial driver's license. I drove semis. I drive semis in the city of Chicago. I was hauling liquid nitrogen. And so I looked in the rearview mirror. It was just one cop. I looked in my glove box to get my registration out. And within that second, I turned around. There was at least 6 cops behind me with their guns drawn, telling me to get out of the car and walk backwards. And my heart just sank, just hit the floor. When I seen that they had their guns out and they were telling me, get out of the car over a loudspeaker and walk backwards. In one of my hometowns, this is a small suburb right outside the city. And my heart just hit the floor, And right away, as soon as they arrested me, they because they had me on videotape taking these guns. And they just slapped tons of charges on me. It was 2 guns. They were both loaded. So with bullets in the chamber, that's an extra charge, and it makes it aggravated. Like I intend to use the gun for a heinous crime or whatever, and they just slapped 10 felonies on me. They arrested me. I spent the first night in the town jail. They took me to a county judge in the city. The county judge looked at my record. He saw that I had no priors, never been in trouble before. And so he said, I bond, let him go. He'll show up for court. And I was released that afternoon. I just saw my world, with 10 felonies on me, I just saw my world crashing before me. I'd already blown, I lost a lot of ground with my kids, through, arguing with my wife and, being, under the influence of these opiates, and then now I'm going home with 10 felonies on me. And I just saw my life just slip away from my hands. And, in an instant, everything I worked for I just saw slipping away. And, I hit rock bottom. And at that point, I decided I was going to take my own life. So like I said, I got out of jail that afternoon. I went home. It was written all over my face. My wife could see it, and she knew that was, something was going on. And, I told her some lies. She told me to get out. And, and now I have a court date with, 10 felonies. How am I going to explain that to my children, From a guy who's never been arrested, never been in trouble, did volunteer work throughout the neighborhoods, their whole life. So, like I said, I decided, this was the end for me, and so I went to take my life, and, whatever, God, higher power, intervened, and I ended up getting it. It was in November. It was freezing here in Chicago. This was 2 years ago, and I ended up hopping into a running car just because I've been up all night. And then, so they arrested me for trespassing. I violated bond, and they took me to the county jail. And, just walking on the deck, like I said, this was 2 years ago. I was 48 years old, and going onto a county deck where, I was the minority, let alone race and age, and, all these kids, the county jail was just packed with, these young kids trying to make a name for themselves, move up the ranks in the gang. And, this was just a pit stop on their, careers of being gang members. This was part of the deal. All these guys had been there before multiple times. And, so I looked like an easy target at first, And so right away it was just, it was every man for himself. I'm sure maybe you guys watched that TV show 60 Minutes or 60 Days, undercover cops going in at these jails. And at first they thought I was, they thought I was, a mole sent in somehow. Just because my story didn't add up. They looked at it like, come on, you're an older white guy from the suburbs. They're going to throw you, in the clink. There were so many times that I had to prove myself as far as, my charges, and I was legit, that I wasn't a mole sent in, or I wasn't an informant. So that caused, a lot of static for me. But, once you kind of get integrated a little bit and, show that, hey, I'm going to stand up for myself and things aren't going to go the way you want it to go, you just got to know how, you got to know how to, bob and weave, you got to pick your points. It was so tough. No sleep at all. These guys just go all night and they just sleep all day, go all night, sleep all day. And it was just, stuff you wouldn't think how humans would behave or how, but once you're set in that environment and how they at least run the county jail in Chicago, they put you in such an environment that they want you to lose it. They want you to snap. They want you to, do something break the rules. So they can just throw more charges on you. So they can just write you jailhouse tickets. And then when you go in front of the judge, they present these jailhouse tickets saying, he did this or he did that, So they just try to make it as hard as they can for you.
So why do you think that is? What's the end game or end goal for?
Well, a lot of it, has to do with, keeping the jails full, getting money from the state. But a lot of it has to do with, the guards, the CO, the correctional officers, are so overworked and they're so burnt. And, like I said, all it is these kids trying to, move up the ranks within the gangs, trying to make a name for themselves, trying to show, their superiors that, they can be trusted or they're, tough, whatever the case is. And so, it's just the way of life, that these kids rebel. And, the guards are outnumbered. You're outnumbered. Everybody knows each other. It's all gang affiliation stuff. And so they just want to see, they like to see kids destroy their own lives. That's the feeling I got from it. That they would push you into a corner so hard, they want to see you just, detriment yourself more and more and more and more and more. And that's what was taking place, It was just a pressure cooker from word go,
Do you feel do you feel like that's part of the punishment process?
Yeah, in a way, right. And, it'll make me never want to, I think twice about everything now. One, because I'm on parole. One, because I don't ever want to go back. I know I'm not. But, they want to teach you a hard lesson. And they do that. They put you in these unbelievable circumstances and expect you to, just eat it all the time. And you gotta learn patience real quick. If not, you're gonna be, locked up in a hole somewhere with, another 6 months added to your sentence once you get sentenced.
So tell us about the day that you were sentenced and then what happened after that.
Well, I had my hopes high all the time because, like I said, it was my first offense. And, it almost seemed like, and they did. They led me to believe that I was getting out. There's a thing called task probation where it's, a really tough probation. You got to jump through all these hoops on a weekly, almost daily basis, and it's such a hard probation, such a strict regimen. People end up failing, they violate it, so they go back to jail. And so, even like the guys that have been through it are like, you don't want that. It's a setup. All they're going to do is push you until you do something wrong and violate you and send you back to jail. But I just wanted to get out, So I was interviewed with the task probation officer, and, she was like, oh, they wouldn't send me here if you weren't getting out. You're getting tasked. Then right at the end, it came crashing down. I had the judge look at me and say, I believe this was not a character move for you. But, here's 18 months. And, I pleaded. I said, hey, the only one you're really going to hurt out of this are my children. I held up pictures of my children. I said, I wrote it out. I did 8 months in county fighting the case, leaving to believe that I'm going to get out of this. I had one opportunity where a couple of friends wanted to bail me out. I could still post bail. I could get a bond. But I'm like, I'll just sit in here, do my time, show the judge that, I'm doing time and I'm remorseful and I'll get out. And that was not the case. I was handed 18 months. And at that point, I was ready, just because county's such a madhouse, because it's just a turnover, that they keep moving you around from deck to deck. They keep bringing in new guys from deck to deck. It was a madhouse, and everybody was telling me, oh, the state penitentiary's not like that. Once you go down, you're there, you're doing your time. And I was so burnt out of being in Cook County, I didn't want to fight anymore. I said, just give me the time. I'll do anything just to get out of, the situation I'm in right now. Something has to be better than this, because it was hell. And so I took the time. I went to a holding facility outside the city, and you just sit there and wait. You don't leave. You sit in that cell 24/7. They bring the shower right to the door. You step out, they give you 5 minutes of trickling water. Once a week you get a shower, and then that's it. You go right back into the cage and you sit there the whole time. I was there for 21 days till they sign you what prison you're going to go to in the state. And then, I'm a first-time offender. And they called my name and they sent me to a maximum joint. It's 22 and 2, 22 hours lockdown, 2 hours of movement. And, that was tough. That was the hardest thing, because now I'm in a penitentiary where it's murderers, habitual criminals, strong arm offenders, and you're identified by your number. Your number, you got to wear that badge for everywhere you go. And so, these guys look at me and I walk on the deck, and they could tell I'm a first timer by the number, and then I'm a short timer by the number. And every cellmate I had 15 years plus. And then some guys were in there for life. And so they see me again, here I come, 50-year-old white guy with, no background, never been in, don't know the ins and outs of the penitentiary system. And right away, let's see what we can get out of this guy. Let's get down on him, and whatever he has, we're taking, because, he doesn't know how the system's run. And that was tough. 22 hours locked up. I mean, those were long, long days. I didn't think I was going to get out of it. I pulled into that place, and you could just feel, the oppression. I mean, in that place, I looked around, I looked at the fences and the walls, and, who I was on the deck with, and I thought, I'm never getting out of here. I thought I was going to die.
So what would you say is what's the name of the prison that you were in? Were you in Pontiac?
No, thank God. That's probably the toughest prison in Illinois, but I was in this place called Pinckneyville.
Oh, that's right, Pinckneyville. Okay.
Yeah, I was in Pinckneyville.
And
that
so,
was, all the way downstate.
Was that maximum security?
Yeah, that was a max joint.
Yeah. What would you say was the racial demographics of the inmates?
It was, African Americans, 99.9%, and then, the whites made up the other 1%, and there was like, a 0.3 percentage of, they would just classify everything else as far as, like Asians or Jewish people, that was a whole separate class. But it was, you never seen two white guys in the same cell. They didn't do that. They tried not to put a lot of white guys on deck because it was a southern, it was all the way down in southern Illinois. And, there's so much racial tension down there, so they'd try to, disperse, any of the white guys, they would try to disperse them throughout the deck. They didn't like, they try to avoid the cliques and the racial tension, which is rightfully so.
What would you say was the racial demographics of the guards?
Well, it was all, it was all white guys, because it was Southern Illinois. And that worked, it was kind of, it worked for you and against you, mainly against you, because, these other, white guys would look at me and, be like, what the F did you do to get here? Even the guards would tell me, you don't belong here. Why are you here? Somebody screwed up. You shouldn't be in this institution. I should have went to a minimum. And so they would look at me and, not even know what charges I'm there for. Everybody assumed that you were a murderer there. And so, they would look at you and be like, you're just as bad as these gangbangers, because they thought, I had a body on me, and they're like, so that worked against me in a lot of instances, where they were, they just consider you scum, that you're just part of the problem, you're a scum, you don't deserve, the slop that they give you. And, there was no favoritism, that's for sure.
Oh, speaking of slop, what kind of food did you get in prison?
Soy, and then they give you some more soy. I went in, I got locked up. I walked in, and they do all your vitals and whatnot. I was 193, and when I was released, I was 167. And still, right now, I've been out almost 6 months, and it's hard for me to gain that weight back, just because of the eating habits that you take on during, and the sleep habits that you take on during that time. Still 6 months into it, still finding myself, decompressing, or forcing myself to eat, because they would serve breakfast at 4 a.m, and you had to get up and go. If you didn't get up and go, you didn't get breakfast. And so they would make it hard for you, so no one would go to breakfast, because you rarely got sleep, so everybody would sleep in. And then it was just all soy, in any shape or form, it was all soy, and your body never, the 2 years I was in, my body never got used to it. So there's a lot of times that I would reject, I knew I wouldn't eat it just because I didn't want to have to deal with, the repercussions of it. And I just kept losing weight. So that was tough. I mean, the diet and the sleep, let alone being incarcerated, but you add that on top of it, plus all the tension in there, and then they want you to fight. Like it was so regimented, except for when you went to chow hall, and when you went to chow hall, they would kind of, it was almost a free for all. They would let you, gang bang. They would let you yell and pass trays, and they would allow all these things to go down because the guards wanted to see a fight. That was fun for them to see, people beat each other up, and then they would slap more charges on you. You'd go to a hole, and they would add 30, 60, 90 days to your sentence for fighting instant. So it was entertainment for them. They loved it.
Did you ever get beat up?
Yeah, I got beat up. I got beat up well, too. Let me tell you. I could take a beating. But you had to. If you were to, there were certain trigger words in the joint, and if people called you out, if you didn't stand up, you're looking at 3 more fights next week, And like I said, people thought I was a mole, I mean, they looked at my number and they looked at the way I carried myself and they're like, this dude's a cop. And so, that caused a lot of friction for me. But, after I got beat up a couple times, they realized, okay, if he was a cop, they would have defended him. They would have took him off the deck. They wouldn't let that happen. But, I mean, it was almost a good thing, to get beat up because, then they kind of proved yourself a little bit. And, that was the only, I would say that the only favor I had, the only blessings I had there is I didn't go to the hole. I never went to the hole. I never had extra charges put on me. Every time I get into a fight, they take you to medical, and then you got to sit in front of an adjustment committee, they call it, and you got to explain yourself. And, that was the only favor I had is when I would sit in front of that adjustment committee and, tell them, why I got beat up. They believe, it was all true. It's not like I started fights. I would get up and start swinging, and for whatever reason, they had mercy on me in that area, and I never went to the hole. I was thankful for that.
So I wanted to ask you some questions about being released and then some of the barriers that you've run into. But do you guys have any questions about his time in prison? For those of you doing papers on being in prison.
Yeah, feel free to ask me anything.
Yeah.
Ask me whatever you want. Man.
Anyone?
Did you make any friends?
Yeah. Did you make any friends?
I actually did. There's 3 or 4 guys that I still talk to now. I mean, it's very hard because, it was 22 and 2 and, unless you're going to church or you got a job within there, it's very hard to socialize. But I did, there were some opportunities and, like I said, there's a couple guys that are released as well right now that, I talk to via Facebook and stuff and try to encourage, But yeah, I met a couple good guys. That helped.
That's a good question. Yeah.
How did visits work?
So how did visits work?
Well, I mean, when I was in county, it was a little bit easier because I was in Chicago, so it was easier for, my friends and family to come. But once they shipped me to Pinckneyville, that was, 8 hours south of Chicago. So I got one visit the whole time I was down there. And that was a buddy. His friend had another son that was incarcerated at a prison down the road. So he made the trip, and I did one visit. I had one visit the whole time. And I understood that. Like I said, 8 hours, down in southern Illinois, that's no easy picnic.
How about phone calls?
Well, you would have to, I only really talked to my sister, and she would have to, set up an account with the company. Like you can't call collect, but she's got to prepay. Like she would have to put $20. She would have to give this company $20 or $30, and that was part of it. The 2 hours that you were released during the daytime was to get on the phone, and that was another whole other fight. I mean, that was I rarely talked to her. just because I didn't want to have to deal with it. Plus, I didn't want to, ask her to put money on the phone. I'd rather have her send money so I could try to get some food, some commissary. But that was a whole other issue, and I'm glad that I kind of stayed away from that. I wrote a lot of letters, but that was just another trap. They would put 3 phones on a deck worth 80 guys. And after every 5 minutes the phone shuts off and reboots itself, and these guys would stay on it, and that was just a whole other mess.
Oh.
How many people were in the cell?
Oh, so how many people are in Pickneyville, and then how many people per cell?
Well, there was like 700 in that camp, and they're only 2-man cells. There'd be like a 4-man cell occasionally just for like medical reasons if all these guys have medical issues. No, a lot of people, they tiptoe around that subject and they're like, well, da da da. I mean, it's the prisons are, there was so many lawsuits, whatever, a couple decades ago about, the prison rape and the abuse that went on. It's totally different like that now. When you get in, it's such a they run you through the ringer. They do everything. They check your background. They mark down every tattoo you have. Every place you ever lived. And if there's a hint, that you were involved in any type of that activity, homosexual activity, or anything like that, any type of charge, or any type of background, or even the way you carried yourself, they sent you totally to a different division. You were housed in a different unit. And then the gangs don't run the institutions as much as they used to, but there's still, it's kind of like just a mutual respect. That head guards, they know who the leaders of the gangs are. And, they kind of check with them as far as making moves a little bit. They show them a little bit of respect. And so if you're not even allowed to make, homosexual innuendos or any types of jokes on the decks. That is unheard of. If anything like that comes out of your mouth and you are suspect at all of that, they get you off the deck immediately. Just because, like I said, so many lawsuits. There's a pre-act call now, the Prison Rape Act. Any type of innuendo, a guard even hears you make, some kind of joke, you're done. They'll send you right to 6 house. That's where all the suspect people, the homosexuals, they all go to a different house. And, so as far as, that kind of, activity still going on in the institutions today, it doesn't.
And so what day were you released?
I was released December 7th.
December 7th of just this past year. So
Yeah.
tell us about that day.
It's just, surreal, they do all these things leading up to it, and so I'm checking these boxes as far as, you get your health checked out, they check out your parole site, they tell you, that you take a parole class, and so just each day as you're getting closer, you see the light at the end of the tunnel, but yet, you hear all these little things that, can trip you up, and they'll make you stay a day or two, and you don't want to stay an hour longer, if the bus is full going back to Chicago, if the train's full going back to Chicago, they got to hold you. If you show up at the train station and there's, like 12 inmates getting released that day, they'll send 6 back because they don't want, 12 felons on the same train going to Chicago. Just crazy stuff. So you're still, I didn't believe it. I'm like, I'll believe it when I see it, And so that day they woke me up at like midnight. I didn't sleep at all. They just come to your cell at midnight. They tell you to get ready. And you said your goodbyes. Anything of value that you have, you leave there for the most part. That's kind of like an unwritten rule. You don't take valuables out of it, just because you got to leave it for the next guy who doesn't have, And if you take, you could buy stuff off commissary as far as whatever, TV, MP3 player, gym shoes, anything that you have to leave there. It's just like I said, unwritten rule, leaves good karma. You leave it for the next guy. So after I've given, you've given everything away, they take you, you pick out your clothes, your dress out clothes the day prior, or a couple days prior, and then you get in a car and they drive you off and they take you to a train station, at like 2 a.m. And it was just, I got to this train station and they're like, okay, don't forget you're on parole, check in here. As soon as you get to your home site, you have to check in. You got, a 24-hour window to check in at that time as soon as they let you out of that car. And, you get out, I'm looking around, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm in Southern Illinois, and there was a bar right across the street, and there was some guys standing out in front of it. I don't even smoke cigarettes. They're outside smoking. I'm like, I went over, I just started talking to them, I told them, I just got out. One guy, I told him, I didn't even ask for anything. I told him I just got out, I just wanted a conversation with, regular people, because I'm in a cell with a guy who's got life. What do I have to talk to him about? I'm in a cell with a guy who's, facing 24 years. What are we going to talk about? I'm getting out, in a year. What are we going to talk about? So there was not a lot of conversations going on. Like I said, did I make friends? It was very hard because I was with a bunch of guys that had no hope, So I kept my mouth shut. So at this point you're starving. You're so thirsty for any type of real conversation where it doesn't involve charges or judges or crooked system. So I went over to these guys. I just started talking. And I told him I just got out of the joint. I'm waiting for the train. One of them reached in his pocket, gave me $10. The other one gave me a cigarette. Like I said, I don't smoke. I think I got like 3 puffs off of it. I almost started throwing up. I was so high. And, it was just, and it was, a 6-hour train ride. And, you try to sleep, but you can't. You're looking out the window, and then especially to pull into the city to get to Chicago, in December, they just give you dress up clothes. I didn't have a coat. So I get off the train, it's, 22 degrees out, and I'm just in a t-shirt. And, but I'm home, it's just surreal, and, you're starving. And I learned my panhandling game week. I went up to the McDonald's, I stood outside the city McDonald's, and I tried to pick my, point as far as asking people to buy me a burger. I didn't ask for money, I just said, can you buy me some food? Not one person bought me anything. I'm like, man, I would never make it as a panhandler. So, it's just surreal, you got to check in, I went to my sister's house, and people don't know how to handle you, they're, I can tell my sister, she's my sister, I've known her my whole life, and she's walking on eggshells. I'm like, would you just relax, I'm like, nothing, please, she's, crying, I'm crying. And, especially in the city of Chicago, you really have to walk a fine line. Just because in any major city, there's, just jerks everywhere. Today I was riding my bike on the lakefront on the path, some guy, had something to say to me, it's like, well, whether you're in the right or the wrong, if you're on parole and you're in the city of Chicago and you do anything, they're gonna violate you. They're gonna send you right back to jail. Especially with the kind of charges I got. I got an unlawful sale of a firearm, class 1 and class 2 felonies. So, they see that, they run your name. I got a job at one point. I was blessed to have a job. I'm driving home. I was at a restaurant at like 2 in the morning, and a state trooper pulled me over. Said I cut him off. I apologized profusely. I said nothing was out of malice. There was no ill intention. And then he asked me my name. I told him. I said I'm on parole. Once you say that to these guys, it was instant handcuffs, instant in the back of his car. He went in my van, tore my van up. I had some boxes and stuff. I was in the middle of moving out of my sister's place into a buddy house. So I had what little belongings I had were in a couple boxes. And he just, he's looking for a gun. If I get caught with a gun on me again, it's 9 years, mandatory 9 years. Repeat offender, 9 years right out of the chute. So he's looking for something to send me back on. I didn't have nothing on me, of course, but he just turned the whole thing. And he came over and I just pleaded with him. I said, look at my phone, man. Please look at my phone. I just got off of work. Look at my phone, what I'm trying to do with my life. I'm trying to turn my life around. Don't take me back. And he cut me a break. He did, I really didn't do anything wrong, but whatever. They could for any reason, they could send you back. And so that was the horror, that I live in right now. I had some issues go on with the parole. You got to check in every week, and there was a mix-up, a computer glitch. They called me in. They said, "Hey, you're in violation. You're not where you're supposed to be. you know, you need to come and report. I came and report. They cuffed me right away. They chained me to a wall, and they left me there for an hour. And then they came back and they're like, well, that was just a computer error. Our bad. You're free to go. You know, just keep your nose clean. Don't do any drugs. And they let me go. You know, and that whole time, that hour, I'm sitting there. I'm trying to prepare myself mentally to go back to Cook County Jail and to go back to the institution, you know, and then they just let you go, you know. I mean, just little stuff like that, you know, it's hard to move forward. It's, you know, around every corner that, you know, you think, man, you know, I can't, you know, to invest in relationships, you know, I gotta be very careful because, you know, that's what happened to me the first time. I let my emotions get the better of me, and, you know, I lost 2 years of my life, you know, and everything else with it, you know. I'm slowly rebuilding the bridge with my children, you know. I mean, they came to see me in Cook County Jail, and they were like, who are you? You know, you are the volunteer dad, you are the softball coach, and now you're sitting in county jail with, you know, 10 felony counts on you. You know, who the fuck are you? You know, and it was very humbling, and, you know, so I lost a lot, you know, writing in from, you know, jail for 2 years, you know, it doesn't cut it, you know. I mean, they can see your heart a little bit, you know, but they need to see where the rubber meets the road, you know. And, you know, my ex-wife isn't doing me any favors, but,
Well,
you know,
tell us about your kids, like ages, what they're doing, gender.
my kids are rock stars, man. You know, they grew up, you know, we grew up going to church, and it really took with them. My oldest, Emily, she's 23. She just graduated from Bible college in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where she got a full ride. And, you know, she's trained to be a missionary. And so is my youngest daughter. She's following right in her footsteps. You know, she ended up getting a scholarship that's college as well. And, you know, they lead these mission trips, these youth camps to Haiti and Nicaragua. I mean, my kids are, you know, it was, you know, and they took a lot on the chin to see, you know, their dad to all of a sudden, you know, go from, you know, this, you know, model type of citizen. Now, you know, I got, you know, 10 felonies on me. And so it's you know, it's been rough, you know. It's been, you know, and I got a lot to work on, you know, as far as reaching out to them consistently now that I'm out. You know, I've fallen back from that just because it's been so hard for me. You know, I reach out to them, and they don't respond the way I want them to respond, or, you know, they don't reciprocate any of the love that I give out, and so I start to get hard-hearted, you know. You know, and so I fall back, and, you know, you know, it's so easy for me to go back, you know, to where I was in my mind, you know, being incarcerated, you know, because you have to become, you know, I became very bitter and very hard-hearted in prison, but that helped me, you know, that got me through the fights, that got me through going to chow, that got me through going to the yard, and, you know, it got me through a lot, you know, that bitterness, that hatred, that, you know, that resentment. I mean, it kept me warm at night, you know, so to speak. And it was very hard, you know, towards the end, you know, trying to deal with that, to let that go, and, you know. It's a little struggle.
Yeah. Well, did you guys have any more questions for? Yeah.
So what do you do now? What's his job?
So talk about what you do now. Or where do you work now?
I'm a server at one of the downtown restaurants. It's great. It's a great job. I'm really blessed. You know, I'm one of the oldest guys there, and so I see all these kids, and you know, I get an opportunity to, you know, share a little bit of my, you know, God's given me some opportunities to, you know, to just, you know, to show the gratefulness that I have. You know, it was tough getting a job. I mean, I was going on interview after interview, and, you know, I would interview so well. These guys would be like, man, you'll be a great addition to our team, and, you know, da-da-da-da-da, and then it would either run my name, or I would, you know, have to write down that I was a convicted felon, and, you know, I wasn't getting nothing. You know, I couldn't get a job at, you know, a breakfast restaurant, you know, and so it was a struggle. You know, it was winter up here. I couldn't go out, and you know, getting turned down after job, and I've never had a problem working. I've always worked my whole life, so it was a real struggle. And you know, I was fortunate to have a couple of good friends. But no, I'm blessed, man. Like I said, I just got done riding on the lakefront. You know, God is, you know, helping me restore very little, you know, on a daily basis with my kids. But I mean, the rebuilding process. One of my buddies just got out, and I tried to tell him, like, man, it is so hard. I mean, at one point when I was out, I'm like, man, it would probably be better if I just went back. Just because there was structure, there was, I didn't feel, you're everybody you're with, you're a bust out. You're a loser. You are a complete bust out. There's no doubt about it. So you get out here, now all of a sudden, I don't know who knew I went down, and to get back on Facebook was a huge leap of faith for me. And you see all these, supposed friends just fall off, drop off. People that I thought, that we were going to be best friends for life, so to speak. And I'm 50. I'm not talking about high school and college friends. I'm talking about adult friends. We did life together. Just non-responsive to me reaching out or any type of. So that was tough. I mean, the rejection part of it. But I mean, it is what it is, and I had to, I had to accept it, deal with it. But it's still tough, It's still, it's still hard, I mean, and then you can't shake the feeling, that people know, or that you're being judged, and for me to post something, I always think twice about it, instead of it's like it stripped you of who you were to a certain degree, I mean, I'm still trying to rebuild that, and to have confidence in my own self. It's a very humbling experience, man. And like I said, I still can't believe it from the depths of I felt, and pretty much lost everything. To try to rebuild your life at 50 years old, it's tough, but it's worth it.
Any other questions? All right. Well, Scott, we wanted to thank you for talking to us. We really appreciate it. All right. If you want to.
Good luck. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Come to Chicago in the summertime.
All righty.
All right. Thank you, Aubrey.
Bye.
Bye-bye.